It's a noun. No, it's a verb. No, it's a noun. I tell you it's a verb. Hey, listen, guys. We really need some noun-verb agreement. Oh, God, I'm sorry. So sorry. So here in my garden we have an elderberry bush, and there were some flowers somewhere there, but they're dying. But look what else we've got. The types of flowers that we don't want. Haha. Let's try this in German first of all. Now you can hear my wonderful German. Haha. Guck mal. Es gibt ein Unkraut und dann noch ein Unkraut und zwei Unkräuter. 1, 2, 3, 4 Unkräuter. Es gibt so viele Unkräuter. I know, you can't say that. So this is a weed, one weed. There are 2 weeds, 3 weeds, 4 weeds. There are so many weeds in this garden. They are everywhere. In German, you can't count weeds. In English, you can. 1 weed, 2 weeds, 3 weeds, they are everywhere. We also have an uncountable form, weed, but that's something that people smoke. Hey man, this weed is good. Okay? These weeds are not good. Right. Take a moment to translate the text on this slide into German. Pause the video if necessary. I have weeds in my garden refers to Unkraut. I have weed in my garden refers to cannabis. Also, in British English, to wee means the same as to pee. Ich habe in meinem Garten gepinkelt. You can count weeds in English but not in German. Typically, with some other nouns, the opposite is true. So please pause this video now and do exercise 1 on Stud IP. We can't count advice in English. So she gave me some advice, or she gave me a piece of advice, or 5 pieces of advice, because we can count pieces. So we can't say she gave me 5 advices either. The same is true for information. Thank you for this information, it was useful. Thank you for this piece of information, or for these 3 pieces of information, if you have to. Notice it's never plural, so even C is incorrect. The same is true for proof. Okay, so have you got any proof, or have you got any pieces of proof? People are often confused by news, because it has an S on the end, it looks like a plural. Of course, in German you can say eine Nachricht, viele Nachrichten, okay? But we can't. So news behaves like a singular uncountable noun, because that's what it is. Have you heard the news? It is so depressing. Okay, it's never plural. A late addition, you can of course say a piece of news. That would be the equivalent of eine Nachricht. But otherwise you simply say news. I think you can see the pattern here, right? just like proof and all the other words we're looking at. If you have a specialist job working in finance, there are certain situations where you might say monies, but for most people that word does not exist. Advice, information, furniture, news, money. That's the top 5, and I've given you proof and evidence as well. There are many other words which are similar, which you can find in your grammar book. Words which you can count in German, most of those, but not in English. Now we're going to look at some other issues with noun-verb agreement. I'd like you to do exercise 2 on Stud IP first, and then we'll go through the answers and we'll look to see what's going on with them, obviously. Please pause the video. You could say, my folders are interesting. But here, of course, the subject is the book. The book is interesting. So make sure that you always have agreement between the verb and the subject. Sometimes the subject is more of an entity. It's what you think of in your head. Like we had the example, fish and chips is tasty, because you're thinking of the meal, fish and chips. In this case, you're thinking of the distance, 50 miles. Otherwise, it would be each individual mile, if you said but 50 miles is a long distance, so the idea of 50 miles. I love the Eurovision Song Contest, and I'm so sad to hear that it's cancelled this year because of the pandemic. But one thing annoys me every year, when people from all the different countries say our 12 points go to the United Kingdom. Actually, no one ever says that. But they do get the grammar wrong. It sounds like there are 12 individual points which each develop legs and then they go to the United Kingdom. When we say our 12 points, what we actually mean is our result. And so we say our result goes to the United Kingdom, our 12 points goes to the United Kingdom. This is another example of where the subject is the entity that you imagine in your head rather than the purely grammatical subject. Just from looking at the word points and seeing an S and thinking that must be plural. With certain words, you have a choice. I can say, my family live in Yorkshire, if I'm thinking about the individual people who are in my family, or I can say, my family lives in Yorkshire, lives, if I'm thinking about my family just as one unit. Both are correct. The same is true here. If you think of the government as being made up of the individual people, then you say the government are. If you think of it just as a political institution, you say the government is. The government is more likely to be used in American English, and in Britain we can use both forms. Please note, in your exam, if you correct a sentence which is already correct, you don't get a point. Americans would normally say our team is, British people could say our team is or our team are. Another example which is similar is minority and majority. So in Britain, we'd say the majority of the people are stupid. I don't know. And in American, they would say the majority of the people is stupid. Well, they could say both, but formally they would say is. Okay, here it goes. This always seems to be difficult for German speakers. What I'm going to tell you is true both for British and American English. Yes, there are some situations where we can say the police is, but that's when we're talking about the police as an institution. So, for example, in Britain, the police is divided into many different police forces, such as the Metropolitan Police in London. But most of the time, when we're talking about the police, we're thinking of the people. So maybe in this sentence, in your head, you could translate the police as die Polizistinnen, die Polizisten, something like that. Sure, we also say policeman, policewoman, or nowadays police officer. But anyway, basically, the police have, the police are, etc. Okay, so that's it for today. In the next class, we're going to have a test of what we've done so far. See you then.